Well, hello and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 131. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Will Silver.
And I'm Gray Williams.
And where's Tasia Custody? Her mom's in town, and apparently her mom's a priority the next couple of weeks. So whatever, just because she gave birth to you, Tasia. But if you want to learn more about Tasia and the rest of the Momentous team, and not Tasia's mom, because Tasia refuses to bring her on camera, even though that's what we should all be doing with our folks, you can visit us at momentous.tv, where you can find links to the podcast, the team members, all the things that we do here. We're only giving you one link now because good marketing only has one call to action. Momentous.tv. Go see all the stuff there. You got it? Good. All right, we got a lot to get through today, fellas. Good thing Tasia's not here to slow us down. Let's start with a whole pile of follow-up. And actually, we'd be even faster if I had the window ready to go. But Here you go. NFTs, remember them?
No,
sort of.
I don't.
We talked about NFTs now and then. They were having a moment back in 2021, and then they were ceasing to have a moment. Just a quick follow-up. Some people feel that NFTs are dead. And there's an article on dappgamble.com. That's dappgambl.com, which is a website all about crypto gambling. But they basically gave a state of the nation on NFTs. And basically, the conclusion was 95% of NFT projects are basically dead at this point. So we've got the big boys are still around. We've still got the crypto kitties, which are still very valuable, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and a few others. But so many of these NFTs are non-fungible tokens, at least in the generative art side of things, where they would often have like, oh, here's 10,000 variations of said kitty or crypto punk or a Bored Ape. And then you had all these copycats, and everyone was trying to cash in. And then some projects were interesting and reasonable quality, and there was just a whole lot of garbage. Kind of like what we see in the podcasting world, right? Where there's 2 million podcasts out there and 95% of them never make it past episode 3. Well, how many of them make it past episode 130?
At least one.
So great. I know you've had a chance to mess around with a little bit of NFTs, and there was a lot of hype, and there's more to NFTs than simply generative art and and commission systems for artists and stuff like that. We've talked about VIP packages for fans of musical artists and stuff like that. What is your take on this on the state of NFTs right now? Are they dead and gone? Are we just in a bit of an NFT winter right now? And what might a comeback look like?
I think we're very much in an NFT winter, but I don't think it's ever going to be like it quite like it was. I mean, the gold rush was sort of one of those things where you looked at it and went, this does feel scamtacular, scamatrocious.
Bubblicious.
Yeah, a little bit. And so, like, interestingly enough, Will and I purchased an NFT for an album, which literally arrived a couple weeks ago.
Did you get them?
I did. Yeah, they're here.
Oh, awesome. Well,
I didn't open the box until like this weekend, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Oh, there are albums.
Nice.
Yeah. So they did pay off. Like, it was a thing where we bought the NFT, and through the NFT we got the delivery of the album. So interesting. There was the wine project that I was working on there for a little bit that literally, I think about 2 weekends ago, folded up shop after like a year of no activity, which was really, really unfortunate because it seemed like it did have promise of people being able to fund, different varietals before they were, in the barrel, and then would have access to that after the fact. And so the promise of it's there, right? And the idea of something that is digital but uncopyable is still, I think, appealing to people. Like something that is digital but has value and can be traded back and forth to someone else. But I mean, it's just like crypto itself, right? We agree that things have money. We agree that things have value when we agree that things have value. And we agree that they don't have value, which it seems like the vast majority of the world did with the vast majority of these things, then they didn't have value anymore. It's interesting to see the ones that do. And if you take a look at the projects that do, quote unquote, still have value, you take a look at the people who are sort of the arbiters of taste of what has value in this space, that Venn diagram is a circle. And so I really, it does almost feel a little bit like, follow me to this wonderful land, for I shall show you all of the Wonka chocolate factory. Yeah, not really buying it right now, because I'm not. And this is the word that we all kind of came back to the first time around, which was utility. What does this friggin' thing do? And if this friggin' thing gets you an album, cool, great. If it gets you, wait, and you can sell this to another sucker, I've never been keen on it. So we'll have to see where this goes, but I don't think we're going to see a mass rush back into NFTs. Not unless we start to see, again, the focus on utility, which when we do, and we will see it, we'll see these things used again, but they're going to be used as tools, like plugins for software, as opposed to being, digital Monets.
Now, the utility can be evident, whether it's the minting of digital art. Collectibles are a thing. People pay money for all sorts of things in the digital realm. But I think there's a lot of anti-crypto people in, say, like the gaming industry. A lot of gamers are anti-crypto for whatever reason. But a lot of them will still pay lots of money for in-game stuff, for DLCs and downloadable content for games, and, emotes in Fortnite, and, costumes and all that kind of stuff. Not to mention the people who will pay like crazy for things in all the casual gaming out there. So, I mean, it had a bit of a stink on it because of all the scammers that were out there. And I think it'll only be a little while before some other high profile player comes in and mints something, like a Taylor Swift, if she ever went that direction. I mean, that could be really helpful in mainstreaming something like this. We had NBA Top Shots doing their thing, but a lot of the savvy ones don't even say the word NFT. They say digital collectible, and whatever's powering the back end, be it blockchain or what have you, doesn't really matter to the end consumer. What matters is the ease of acquisition. Gray, final thought?
Yeah, final thought here was the gotcha mechanics that we saw in so many of these things, which was the generative approach to it. Now that we've seen generative AI kind of take a step into the mainstream, I think folks are kind of looking at this and going, okay, so I'm rolling the dice on getting one of these things that has a number of these characteristics. And I've seen AI work in my regular day-to-day life. I don't think the gotcha mechanics are going to appeal to people anymore. It's that gambling aesthetic that I think was challenging to get people to take part in to begin with. And I think I don't think we're going to be seeing more of that. By gotcha, I mean like the Japanese blind box style, where you basically put money in, you get a container that hopefully has the thing that you wanted, and you open it up and it's maybe a shiny Pokemon or it's a golden whatever. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of that anymore, because it just feels very much like a lottery. And I think a lot of the folks who were stung the first time around were the people who were most susceptible to this. And I don't know that they're going to be bitten twice again. Then again, the average intelligence of the average person. Could be wrong on that one.
For gotcha mechanics, see also like trading cards.
Yes.
Right. Like our friend of the show, Al, has got a great channel called Hockey Cards in Canada. And that's basically what he does. He does unwrapping of various, of hockey cards, mostly from different eras. And it's intriguing to watch, because like, ooh, what's going to be in here? Is it going to be, a valuable rookie card, for example? Is it going to be a Ovechkin or
I still have a wax box. I have a wax box of Upper Deck from 1991, completely unopened.
Oof.
There you go. Let's rip that baby open for the views.
No, sell it.
Yeah, sell it to Al. All right, or just put your money in GameStop. Moving on.
No, too soon.
Speaking of crypto, again, another follow-up story for us. About a year ago, we were talking about good old FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. And
we're not pronouncing his name Fried.
Yeah, he's going to get fried over it. So testimony has started, and a couple of the people who have flipped on him, his previous co-workers. I think, Gray, you may be laughing at the headline, Sam Bankman-Fried was a terrible boyfriend. The head of the affiliated company, Alameda Research, Caroline Ellison, they were a romantic item for a while. And she pled guilty, did a plea deal, throwing him under the bus. One of the other co-founders, Gary something or other, he's been testifying as well, Gary Wang, and basically, basically said, yeah, we did fraud.
We frauded.
We frauded. So we'll see how this all works out. It's so strange having watched the PR campaign from Sam Bankman-Fried, like over the last year or so. well, sometimes while in custody, sometimes while out on bail, sometimes while back in custody for not following the rules, and basically doing all sorts of interviews and stuff like that. And he was being accused of kind of poisoning the well when it came to potential jurors. Will he get a fair trial? Who knows? It's all very interesting, and I, for one, can't wait for the various books and documentaries and or dramatization miniseries a la Theranos that we're going to see probably very soon.
We should note that Gary Wang here, not to be confused with Garrett Wong of Star Trek Voyager, who you and I both met in Las Vegas probably about 10 years ago. And really, there's something that needs to be investigated for conspiracy because Ensign Kim, after 7 years, still being Ensign Kim. If there's fraud anywhere in Starfleet, it's the fact that that guy did not get a promotion.
Bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Well, phrasing.
Unfair.
This is a family-friendly show. And why hasn't he shown up in some of the newer Star Trek series?
Ideal for Star Trek Prodigy. Ideal, right? You've got Admiral Janeway, you've got Hologram Janeway, Chakotay is missing, the show's been canceled. It's ideal for him to get a promotion.
Or on a show that people actually watch.
My feelings. That's where I would hurt if I had them.
All right. Will, you've got some great corporate shenanigans for us, as well as our second follow-up to this story. What is happening with Unity?
I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. So Unity is the game engine. So basically the code, some tools that help people develop games. I'm just doing a quick refresher here. And basically they introduced a retroactive pricing model, and the game developer community yelled out in pain. It was not well received. They had to walk it back almost immediately. This was the 20-cent download fee, basically, if people downloaded your game, if it reached 200,000 downloads and $200,000 in revenue. They have walked that back tremendously, and it looks like the CEO had to resign as a result. It's pretty much been a debacle. I think, really, they poisoned the well. People are still very angry at Unity, and I think this was probably a step to try to regain some trust. I have to be honest with you that, I work in the game industry, and the people that I've talked to just don't trust Unity anymore after some of the things that, deleting of terms of agreement from GitHub and things like this. It really rubbed people the wrong way. And even though they've sort of gotten rid of the retroactive payment, they are still talking about this charging model going forward, which many people in the industry are saying, well, that's non-starter. Why would you use Unity then, especially when they pulled the rug out from under a bunch of people before? So I think, this is just my personal opinion, but this smells like trying to unpoison the well, trying to get the company back in good footing, because their reputation has really gone south to the most important community, which is the people that actually use the product.
Well, at least Apple's leaning on Unity for Apple Vision Pro coming out next year, so we'll see how that all works out.
Honestly, this actually works out really well for Apple, because there's an IPO out on Unity. Does this say acquisition? Yeah, it does. Like, if there's one way to expand Xcode and make it into a thing that is cross-platform, and eventually for Apple to be able to have things that run on Vision Pro that, the best experiences on Vision Pro. Yeah, I think it does.
They basically, I think at this point, you never know. And you never know till it happens. But to your point, Gray, I think something radical would have to happen, like someone that people trust would have to take it over at this point, because, I know the CEO stepped down, but, the DNA is there. I still think they have problems if something doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it's not really like Apple to spend billions and billions. I'm not sure what Unity would be worth, but the most Apple's ever spent is whatever was it $1 billion for what Beats. That's right. And are they saving up for Disney still? Are they saving their pennies? And obviously Apple has taken several kicks at the gaming can, and some people feel that they're not super serious about it. Although they tend to do quite well in casual games with their app store VIG that they take there. So again, watch this space. Now, Gray, do you think John
Riccitiello.
Should he have maybe taken a lesson from from Activision CEO or Reddit CEO and just like stood his ground, like damn the torpedoes? Did he lack conviction?
Neither. He's 66.
All right.
This is it, right? Like he started with EA in 97.
Screw you guys, I'm retiring.
Yeah, exactly that. And honestly, like I think it was probably looked around the boardroom table and just like, yeah, you know what? F this noise. Someone's gonna have to fall on their sword on this one. And I imagine the sword that he fell on was gilded. Like
exactly.
This felt again like 1997 with EA. I think 2004 he went off into the wilderness. He ended up 2014. Where was he? I can't remember. But 2014 he actually joined Unity. So he's been doing that for the last 9 years, right? So you put almost a decade into a company. You take it to IPO. You have like a massive install base. Yes, people are saying that they're going to leave. Will, to your point, I think there is going to have to be a massive walk back, but it's like we're seeing this all over the place. And you're going to have to pardon the use of the term. This is Cory Doctorow, but in shittification, right? And this is like Unity is in late stage in shittification. And so, we're seeing it with places like Delta Airlines, where they've gone through and they're leveraging their customers as a bank, not as an airline. We're seeing it with Unity doing the same thing here. So for those of you who are listening, Cory Doctorow just did a recent speech at DEF CON, where we'll put a link in the notes, which was great about this concept of basically, being the product, that product then being to exploit the users, exploiting the people who are marketing to the users, and then finally just the destruction of everything in pursuit of that last bit of profit. And this, I think, was late stage in shittification. And it's Will, you're right. Like, this is how things die. This is how platforms die. I think they're seeing that. I think a lot of people are seeing that. And I think the awareness of it being drawn to it by guys like Cory Doctorow, they're looking at it going, okay, we are this. I think there is a self-awareness maybe that there wasn't a year ago. And hopefully we can see some people pull out of this dive. But otherwise, like, to your point, why would you want to do business with somebody who says to you, after 200,000 downloads and $200,000, you owe us 20 cents per download, something that you cannot control? Mm-hmm. That's just like no one around the boardroom table having the good sense to look at that and go, like, let's put ourselves into the shoes of a small software developer or one of those effing idiots. As John Riccitiello said the year before, yeah, it's bad news. Anyway, the reason he's stepping down, not because he should have held his guns, but he's 66. It's time to go. And somebody had to fall on their sword. John looked at it and went, okay, I'm out.
I'm going to get on my soapbox, which and Tristan's has an opinion on this, but Bob Chapek for Disney.
Yes.
He was one of the problems with this, where he kept on trying to change things at the Disney park because he was big on the per day spending. And as a result, that works for somewhere where like Disney World, where there's a lot of destination visitors, but Disneyland is often known as a locals park. So he was basically cannibalizing the locals and often sort of saying, well, you guys don't spend enough per day. I want the people that spend $600 a day. You guys spend like $50 a day. Start spending more money. And you're not looking at your customer base. He wanted to try to make Disneyland into Disney World, and they're very different. He didn't see them as separate problems. He's like, how do we get more money out of these locals? And that's the thing where, Disney fans hated him. And that's why everyone, it was like Ewoks, like Yub Nub when he got fired, and like Yub Nub, Yub Nub.
Now I'm picturing Chapek on a spit.
Yeah, exactly. No, they would have rotated him on his spit.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Hated. He was hated by Disney fans, and Tristan knows my opinion on this. We've had a couple conversations, and if the topic is brought up, I pretty much spit venom about Bob Chapek. So
you're objectively correct. So.
Yes. So, but it's the and forgive me, Tristan. It's the inshitification. It's like
we've used a variation of that word before a few months ago, and I said impoopification.
Impoopification.
It doesn't quite have the same impact, though.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
it's kind of it's weak in comparison.
And
but for all our toddler listeners, it's more appropriate.
You know what? They need to get with the state of the world. Sorry, well, I interrupted.
No worries. I was also going to say, it's like, I remember we all worked at a company together that shall not be named. And I remember they were always like, we're going to double it every year. We're going to double it. I'm like, where does that end? Like, how can you double it every year? Like, that's not a measurement that you can
I introduce
sustain.
you to this MLM?
Yeah. So, and where's that company now?
Take a look at it now.
Yeah.
We'll pour one out for them.
Yeah.
In other corporate whoopsies or again possibly much ado about nothing, we saw a few months ago with Disney Plus show Secret Invasion. There was a bit of a furor due to the intro credits that were obviously done with the assistance of generative AI, quite obviously. So personally, I thought it actually fit the series quite well and was of a comparable quality to the entire series.
Ooh, shade.
But it was appropriate for the themes of of the series.
It was non-generative shame. Non-generative shame, pardon me.
Now we back to the well. Disney's Loki faces backlash over reported use of generative AI. So there was a poster for Loki, which features a background image that apparently was taken by Shutterstock, or taken from Shutterstock, and has some artifacts of that kind of telltale artifacts that sort of tell you that, it was produced with generative AI. And then people did a little bit of sleuthing because everyone needs a hobby, and they went and found the original and found that the artist behind it, using these generative AI tools, has actually submitted all sorts of other generative AI work, but was not flagged as such. And so maybe Disney actually didn't even know it was AI assisted art there. And well, I mean, it depends how close you're looking. It depends how, whoever's putting this together. I mean,
whoever did this is lazy. And I use generative AI in my things. Content aware fill people. It's called Photoshop. You could get that shit out in 5 seconds.
Yes. So to clarify, what the artist did here, whoever mocked up this put this poster together, was not necessarily using generative AI themselves. They were using a stock image from Shutterstock as it was not labeled as AI by the creator. So again, not everyone knows the telltale signs for generative AI like we do, because they have lives and like actual lives, and they're not examining these things as closely as we are. So it could very well be that they didn't know, like these cryptic blobs could have just been part of the mystique of this image. And to your point, well, yeah, if you didn't like the look of it, you just like generative fill, or went magic eraser, whatever you want to do to get rid of that, healing brush. There's lots of tools for that, but it also, those mysterious blobs also add to the mystique of the image. So maybe they felt it was better just to leave them in, whether or not they knew that it was a result of, they were artifacts from generative AI. Who knows, right? We can't read the minds of the person who put that together. What's that, Greg?
It's not just that. Like looking at this image, this has Midjourney written all over it. Yeah. Like the Ministry of Silly Walks Loki that you can't see necessarily in that particular image. Mm-hmm. It's down a little bit below by his left shoulder. Mm-hmm. There's a character that looks like it's right out of the Ministry of Silly Walks sketch. And it's like looking at this whole thing, the look of Loki's face looks like generative AI.
Yeah, but that's not even in question. Like people aren't even talking about the rest of the image at all. People are focusing on this background, and the rest of it, whether it's generative AI or not, who knows? It could just be a pastiche, but the critique is all about the background. So again, do people like, do people need lives? Well, is this like, who cares? Should we care about this?
I don't. I mean, the thing is, I'm at a loss of what the actual problem is. I mean, if you pay for
AI,
an
you're putting
image,
people out of work.
oh, whatever. If they paid for the image, it's fine. But the other one that's bad is when people like use like the thumbnail or the preview of like a stock image and don't even pay for it. If they paid for it, fill your boots.
Yeah, there's no like
there's
no like watermarks on there saying,
no. If there's no watermarks and somebody posted it, that's the artist's problem, not Disney's problem. So, or not Marvel's problem. So I have zero problems with it as long as they paid for the image. If they paid for the image, then there's no problem. Like artists like myself or digital, designers use stock images and remix them all the time. So like I have zero problem with that. But whether it's the AI is the controversy, I also have zero problem with that, because that's just if people are selling those images, the only problem would be what are the rules for Midjourney, because I believe that there's some rules about not selling stuff from not making money off of Midjourney and images that are generated from Midjourney. And that's one of the things that's in the back of my head when I use them for loopers, because I'm not making money off of it. So yeah.
Anyways. And with Shutterstock, you're paying for the licensing fees, and company like Marvel, Disney, obviously they're going to do things properly because they don't want to get in that kind of trouble, because the risk profile of that sort of negligence. And it's very easy to go into these stock photo sites, just do a search for spiral clock with Roman numerals or whatever and see what comes up. And they're not necessarily looking at all the other work by the given artist. And when you look at his stuff, it's like, yeah, a lot of it looks pretty AI-ish now, but they probably didn't even click through. I know I often don't when I'm looking at stuff. I'm just looking for the right image for the job here. Now, the question is, this user, Svaran, I mean, they're maybe somewhat culpable because Shutterstock, in their terms of service, they say you're supposed to label your work as being AI generated, and it was not done as such. So, sort of moving on to the next kind of chapter of this story, in related news, Adobe has actually created a symbol to encourage tagging AI-generated content. They say Adobe's new icon, which it says will be adopted by other companies like Microsoft, is part of its initiative to provide transparency in AI-generated work. And I think most of us here could probably agree that, yeah, maybe that's a good thing to do, just like with GMOs. Then people can make an educated choice if they want to, be supporting that kind of art. But here's the logo, guys. Does that just scream AI-generated art to you, or what? CR.
Looks like it has a high percentage of cream.
Yeah.
Any guesses as to what CR might mean? Like, no, it doesn't say AI. It doesn't say like anything like it's CR. Well, apparently CR is it stands for credentials. So it's the first two letters of credentials. They didn't go for C because it's actually comes from the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, the C2PA. Yeah, they don't want to confuse it with Creative Commons, so they're not using CC or whatever. So it's like, why didn't you just use the letters AI, guys?
Yeah.
Like, is that too on the nose? Are you trying to keep it a little mysterious? Are you trying to have it both ways?
Oh, wait. It's the first two letters of craft as well. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, I love the idea, but the execution, like, come on.
Yep. Boo.
So, Will, speaking of generative art, Adobe's next-gen Firefly 2 offers vector graphics, more control, and photorealistic renders. So just like we've been seeing with Midjourney, just like we've been seeing with DALL-E, we're on Midjourney 5 now, DALL-E 3, these tools are getting better and better. The difference with Adobe's is that their training data is all on stock imagery that they own. So licensing isn't a problem here. And they show there's some examples in the article about, what was done with Firefly 1 versus Firefly 2, the level of detail and sophistication with some of these images. Now, you're an Adobe user from way back. Are you currently a subscriber to Creative Cloud? And would these kind of tools maybe draw you away from Midjourney, so you're only paying one set of subscription fees?
So I'm a I have a personal account.
Mhm.
I also have a work account. So I have Adobe a couple different ways because just of the way the licensing and all that kind of stuff works. I don't know if it's Firefly. I have to be quite honest with you, but I have used the AI tools within Photoshop. I played around with it when it first came out. I've played around with various aspects of it. I even mentioned earlier the content aware fill and stuff like that. And there's options now to do prompts and to if you got a picture of a lighthouse on a hill, you can put grass or fjord in a selected area, and
Love a
it will
good fjord.
take the water away and put in a fjord or something. I've done that. It's actually, I was pretty impressed with it. The only thing that was a little janky is I was replacing some buildings, and the buildings looked very fake. But actually stuff like landscape, they have an automatic feature for sky, which is quite good. So I don't know if that's Firefly, but it's the built-in Photoshop AI tool. And, honestly, that makes way more sense than all the stuff they've been shoehorning into Photoshop over the last 10 years, like 3D and animation and all these other things. So I think that, it's peanut butter and jelly. It's gum and nuts, it works together. So I'm joking.
Ham and plaques.
Ham and plaques. Yeah, ham and plaques. Tristan said that to me when I started a job with him. He said, "Hey, Will, it's not all ham and plaques."
That's an old Letterman reference.
Yeah, sorry, that's inside reference. But yeah, it's peanut butter and jelly. I think this makes total sense because as a Photoshop user, you do a lot of selecting and content aware fill or heel brush or whatever. And if you can select an area that's all water and go grass or rocks, that makes so much sense. And I found that works well. I think, I haven't tried it with people, but when I tried it with buildings, it was like, oh, results may vary.
Yeah.
So I think like anything, and I've had these conversations with you, Tristan, about Midjourney and other AI tools. It's knowing how to work it, right? It's knowing what it's looking for, it's knowing what it does well and what it doesn't do well. Teeth, fingers.
They're getting better though. That's the thing.
Oh, the fingers are getting better. I've noticed the fingers are getting better, but and I send you some horror shows on,
and you
Instagram.
Won't quit for some reason.
What?
And I'm always looking at them just before I go to sleep because I have poor sleep hygiene. I'm like, oh, good. Now I've got that in my brain just before shutting my eyes.
So just for the audio podcast, as you like to say, I will describe one of the images I sent to you. It was a flesh toothbrush with teeth as bristles with cigarette butts on the bristles. It was so I guess you looked at that.
I need to know the prompt that made that.
Yeah, that's the thing is Tristan says this too. I always want to know what the prompts are. I wish people would publish what the prompts were.
So I've got an idea. Why don't we do this? Because I've got access to a couple of tools. You've got access to a couple of tools. Why don't we get a standard set of prompts and feed them into a bunch of these different things and see what they spit out? I think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're procrastinating, Will and I will do that. He'll send me something that he's done up in Midjourney, and then I'll send him a version from Bing Image Generator, and we can compare, and you can see the relative strengths and weaknesses for them. So yeah, great. If you've got any, maybe we'll do a little round robin and share sometime before Tasia comes back.
Yeah,
that's fun.
All right. Speaking of Tasia, she really should be here this week because last Wednesday, the day after our last live stream, the Google Pixel event 2023, which included announcements for the Pixel 8 series of phones, the Pixel Watch 2, Pixel Buds Pro, and of course, Android 14. And as discussed, all of these Google events are becoming more and more anticlimactic as time goes on because they deliberately pre-announce and leak stuff for weeks leading up to these things. So by the time they actually have their event, it's like, okay, cool. That stuff that we mostly already saw, maybe just a couple new details. Like it's an interesting strategy, and I guess it's just to set themselves apart. Another thing they're doing to set themselves apart, well, I guess from Apple at least, and Meta we saw with their event recently, is they're doing the in-person thing, small room, and who was I? Well, yeah, Stephanie, my wife Stephanie, saw over my shoulder when I was watching the recap, and she's like, "That looks really low budget." So it's like in a tiny room, and they got a screen up there, and it's like almost like a TV infomercial sort of thing. I think was her full comment. But some of the announcements pretty decent. The Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro. Tasia will be getting a Pixel 8 Pro apparently from Google to do some reviews. So we look forward to her objective review on that, and they're getting good reviews so far. Of course, they have a lot of strength in their computational photography. They have the just a general spec upgrade across the board. Lots of nice baked in Android features. Pixel Watch 2, again, Google's in a strange situation having bought Fitbit, and now they've got the Pixel Watch, and they still have the Fitbits, and there's some cross pollination. I'm not loving the look of them, frankly. When it looks better, I think, on the wrist, but when they show them in the video, the very Apple-esque videos with them flying around and whatnot, they look, I don't know, they look weird to me. But that's just me. I mean, I know like some people like round watches and it's a thing, but it's just there's something like a little uncanny about them. Still haven't wrapped my head around that. Pixel Buds Pro, which they're earbuds, and of course Android 14, Google Assistant, call screen. So a lot of the features that we've talked about in Android 14 previously. One of the cool ones being the call screen, whereby people can call you, and you can have the phone. I think it's similar to an Apple feature, but taking it one level higher, where you'll have an AI assistant answer the call, ask the person what the call is about, and then have an interaction there. It's like, and you can interact on your phone saying, no thanks, and the assistant will say, sorry, they're not taking calls right now. You can leave a message with me. And it's all sort of interesting and dystopian that we don't actually want to talk to human beings ever again. And we Pixel Fold, Google Pixel Fold was already talked about. I think they gave it a little footnote there as well. Gray, from what you've seen from the Pixel event, despite its anti-climactic nature, what stands out to you from the Pixel 8 series of phones, Pixel Watch 2, the Pixel Buds Pro, or Android 14, such as it is? If you had to pick one thing, what do you think is most significant out of the announcements there?
I mean, I always like the translation features that they've been working on. The watch is interesting. It's nice to have a little bit of competition with the Apple Watch. It's an interesting design. To be honest, though, like this feels like a lackluster year.
Okay.
That's kind of like it's so maybe this is myopic. Maybe it's just tunnel vision, but it's just like, I used to kind of tune into this stuff with the, interest of like what's going on. The clear calling, actually, that's one there that I really wish that AirPods did better, because they're processing the noise cancellation for the user who's using them, but they don't have great noise cancellation for the person with the microphone. And that to me is silly. It's something that should be a whole lot better than what it is. And I've suffered with this for years and years and years, because I like to put my earbuds in and go for a walk and call people. And on a windy day in Vancouver, they ain't hearing stuff. So yeah, that's probably the thing that I'd like to see the most. But other than that, yeah, it didn't really set my hair on fire.
Yeah, Google's strengths with their Pixel products in the last few years has really been in the software side. Of course, their hardware continues to improve every year. They're doing their own silicon as well, with the Tensor line, which is really helping their AI efforts and helping to power their assistant features. Which, if you are right in the Google ecosystem, that can be very powerful, because it has access to so much of what you're doing anyway, with Gmail and Google Maps and Google Docs and Google Sheets. We've talked about that on previous shows as well. So I think that's where a lot of the more interesting things are happening, is in the software side. Just like Google's been able to get amazing results out of sometimes 2 or 3 year old camera sensors, for example, and they just, with their computational photography, and Apple's got that as well, but Google has really been leading the charge on that. So they're, with their engineering prowess and their software development chops, that's where they are able to get exceptional results out of hardware that isn't necessarily top of the line, especially when you're looking at the non-Pro Pixel and the things you can do with the non-Pro Pixel if you don't own a shell out for the Pixel Pro. And the one other note with the Pixel Pro phones that they actually, I mean, they're very good value, but they have risen in price, about $100 US for each. So I think we're looking at $699 starting point for the Pixel 8, and then $999 for the Pixel 8 Pro. So there's quite a gap there, but nice simple lineup, which may get more complicated as time goes on, but you always start simple. And apparently, it seems like some of these efforts have been paying off for Google in terms of the number of shipments over the last few years. They're 8 or 10 years into this whole Pixel line of phones after they retired the Nexus phones, and their market share is still tiny. I think we're talking between 1% and 2%, but it is growing. And I think over the course of the Pixel phones' lives, I think we're between 30 and 35 million, if I recall correctly, sold. But almost 10 million of that is just in the last year. So the trajectory is looking good for those who, say once in a while is, Google's not really serious about hardware. Well, now that they're starting to see some positive results, I think maybe they're getting more serious about hardware.
This is one of the few brands that I will recommend to people if they're looking for an Android phone. So I know for myself, it comes down to basically Galaxy Xperia and Xperia, I think, has run its course. So
yeah, it's too bad because the Sony Xperia phones are they have such cool features, amazing camera hardware in them, but they're A, super expensive, and B, really hard to get in North America. Yeah. So, and Samsung, they're still the 800-pound gorilla in the Android space. So, I mean, Google's job is basically to steal people away from Samsung, which is tricky because they're also a partner, right, on the software side for the operating system.
I should actually mention the Nothing phone is also kind of interesting.
Yeah, very cool. But again, sort of very niche, just like we've got offerings from OnePlus and Oppo and all those, sort of the Android enthusiasts really get into that stuff. Okay, let's move on to some of our other stories from this week. Well, speaking of Android, just a real quick one here. Thousands of Android devices come with unkillable backdoor pre-installed. Now, a little bit of clickbait here, which it sucked me in, this article in Ars Technica. When you look into it, they're not talking about Android phones. They're mostly talking about those cheap little Android TV boxes that you can get, some of which you get at like swap meets or on dodgy websites, loaded up with all sorts of software to get you like free TV shows and movies. And there's a whole weird kind of underground for that kind of stuff. Well, you get what you pay for. Some of these boxes are as cheap as $50. Some of them, and of course they're mostly built in China. Some of them have had this back door, which is based on the Triada malware, which has apparently been out in the wild since 2016 or so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hundreds of thousands of these devices are out in the wild. And we just want, as a public service announcement, if you've got a cheap little Android TV box, maybe just do a little Googling or use your AI assistant of choice that has access to the web and punch in your model number and see if it's one of the devices affected, because you don't want it to siphon stuff from your network.
So two things here. It's not just TV boxes. I've actually been able to verify this is on projectors as well. So I've looked at 3 different projectors in person. And so if you're looking at like Temu or AliExpress and you're seeing a projector for like $19.99 with 400 lumens, you're like, oh, it's kind of a crappy projector, but it still works.
It's $20.
And they announced like Android powered. Yeah, yes. It absolutely is. It is the same chipset and it is the same software that's on this. Quick way you can take a look to see if this actually is infected. If you have a like root switch in the control panel, if you have a switch where you can turn root on or off, or you can run a quick command to reboot as root, it's effed. Send it back.
Throw it in the ocean.
You can dig this stuff out, but it is like a tick. Like it is right in that OS. I was able to actually like extract it from an Android system and completely flash it again. It took me 6 hours to do.
Wow. I mean, it's when you think about that 6 hours, you could just bought an Apple TV with the money saved.
Yeah. This wasn't for me. This was for a friend of like, why is this so slow? Well, yeah, I'll show you why.
Friends don't let friends use Android TV boxes.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that you can do is if you get one of these things, the second, like before you plug it in, one, assign it a manual IP, 2, block that IP with a firewall whatever else, it is going to phone home. And they're crafty. Like they've got a number of different servers that they can use to phone home, install more of this software. The best thing to do absolutely is to check it out or to return it.
This is why we can't have nice things. I mean, it's hard to resist the appeal of such a deal, but you get what you pay for. Especially
if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly. All the aphorisms, all the truisms will just,
You fail to plan, you plan to fail.
An emergency on your part, never mind. Let's keep it. Atlas 5?
And it's an interesting, a bit more optimistic question mark news. Not to be outdone by SpaceX, Amazon has completed on-target orbital delivery of a number of initial satellites on top of an Atlas V rocket brought to you by ULA. And I don't remember what ULA stands for. They're one of the aerospace or the rocketry companies out there. Interestingly, this did not go on a Blue Origin flight.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Jeff's
like, want to risk it,
guys. Yeah, exactly. So apparently, this is the first of a series of at least 77 rocket launches to deploy a fleet of more than 3,200 satellites to rival Starlink, which has itself about 4,000 satellites up there.
Bless.
Now, I mean, competition is good. This is great for people in rural areas. It might drive the prices down even further. Internet access for developing countries and the like. But Gray,
yes,
there is the problem of pollution in the skies.
You know what?
Astronomers.
I think that's a small issue at this point because we're screwed on that front. So we can basically just move on past it. Really, what we need to think about here, and the competition is good. We now have competition between our real life Lex Luthors, which is great.
Nice.
We no longer have one guy cornering the market on real life supervillainism. We now have two guys at satellite networks, which I believe was played by Samuel Jackson in the movie Kingsman. So that's great that we now have like a real life analog. We've got life imitating art.
Who was that guy in the James Bond movie? He was like the media mogul that could control the world.
That was Jonathan Pryce in the Tomorrow Never Dies, which was originally called Tomorrow Never Lies because he was publishing Tomorrow's Papers today. Yeah, bang on. And he was kind of based on Steve Jobs a little bit, but also a little Jeff Bezos. He had the Steve Jobs turtleneck. He lived around
it was Steve Jobs vibes.
He goes on to become the Pope. So just really full circle on that one, Dan Browning it. I would like to say that this is actually United Launch Alliance's 99th launch, which is great. So they've got 99 launches and a glitch ain't one. That's fantastic.
And that's a partnership between Boeing and Lockheed Martin, I believe.
Yes, and they've got Russian engines.
Yeah, so I saw that. I thought there was sanctions. And they're buying Russian. How is
these were already purchased? It's kind of like finding things in the pantry.
They had them in stock.
Yeah, you're like, oh look, HP sauce. I love that. It's still got the seal of the Queen on it. That's fantastic. How long have we had?
They loaded up at the beginning. That's exactly right. They loaded up at the beginning of COVID, right? So yeah, we better get some rocket engines. You never know when they're going to come in handy,
just in case,
or when our source might invade a sovereign nation.
Right after they moved all their billion-dollar yachts, they started selling all their rockets, or.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
So having a mega constellation of satellites, obviously going to be very good for Amazon, and terrifying for the rest of us.
So this is the Kuiper constellation, named after the Kuiper belt, I assume. Can you refresh us what the Kuiper belt is?
So that is that asteroid belt that I keep talking about.
Right.
That is there's Golden Nemdar Hills.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's a great name, because you think of the asteroid belt, you think like there's a lot of rocks,
a lot of debris, things that could kill us
in the way, and so now we've got all this debris just in orbit. These so now it said these 3,236 satellites are spread out in 98 orbital planes. What does that mean? Different heights, or what does that mean exactly, Greg?
Yeah, so basically you're looking at sort of like azimuth and where they fall. Have you seen Starlink as it passes overhead?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you're in that's your orbital plane. Essentially, if you think of it this way, you know how I spin poi, right? These sort of Polynesian juggling tools, right? It's basically like a sphere on the end of a rope, right? If you consider that center, that pivot axis of where my hand is as I spin that around, that's kind of like the Earth is the center of that as this sort of spins in orbit around that. With those 98 planes, essentially, they're looking to cover the vast majority of the planet for communication services, which is, when you think back to the days of Motorola Iridium, right?
Oh, yes.
Very, very expensive satellite phones. And that was because they only had a certain number of satellites because lift vehicles were far and few between, other way around, few and far between. And like getting stuff into space was incredibly expensive. They just didn't have it. So, Iridium famously kind of went satellite antennas up.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have satellite coverage in places where we never had it before. Fascinating that Amazon doesn't want people to know what their satellites look like, because that's not hard to figure out, right?
It doesn't look like Blue Origin rockets, do they?
So it's just like at this point, we're going to be able to figure out where these are based on how they're communicating with transmitters on the receivers on the Earth and transmitters on the Earth. You're going to be able to point a satellite, point a telescope up and look at it. This is secrecy for no one's sake, and it's weird that they're not interested.
Maybe.
Yeah, but it's just like, it's one of those things where, if you're coming into the market after somebody, don't you want to make a bit of a splash? But maybe there are brighter minds than mine who are looking at this and going, we need to keep this secret because reasons. Don't know what they are right now, though.
So get ready for more space junk. Oh, speaking of space junk, we don't have this linked, and I wasn't really going to talk about it because I forgot until now. Dish Network just got like something like a ridiculously low fine, like $130,000 or something like that, for not properly getting one of their old satellites, which was deployed in 2002. They didn't get it into the proper, orbit for decommissioning and to get it burn up in re-entry or something like that. It's basically a zombie satellite now and effectively space junk. And I believe, I'm not sure if it was the FCC who's got the jurisdiction for that or whatever, but they slapped $100,000 plus onto Dish Network for not taking care of the trash. So we're going to have a whole lot more. How long do these satellites last, and how well are they going to clean up after themselves? We're going to have 7,000 plus just from SpaceX and Amazon alone.
I've said already, there is a lucrative business in low orbit waste management, right? There's some guy in New Jersey right now who's going, hey, you know what? I think I can probably take care of this. I think I got an idea. Waste management in space. This I am looking forward to. The Sopranos too? Yes.
Totally above board.
Yes. Bring me the show.
What I want to know, though, is remember a few years ago that Facebook, which was still called at the time, kind of got in a little bit of trouble for some of their what were thought to be humanitarian efforts to bring internet to developing countries under the guise of, I think it was called internet.org originally, and then it got rebadged to something, I think it was called Facebook Essentials after that. So it's free internet access for people in various developing countries. But the catch is that I'm not sure if you had full internet access. At the very least, it defaulted to a lot of Facebook services. Now, what I want to know is that
Facebook Online.
Yeah. So if you want to get one of these Amazon dishes, which look quite similar to the Starlink ones, is it going to default your homepage to Amazon.com and tell you about the latest deals? And
that's a good question. So the top of this is actually e-ink, and you can get one that's fully paid for and one that just sort of shows ads every.
Perfect. Okay. We have fun. Moving on to, speaking of Amazon,
Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
We've got a link in the show notes. We found, I tried to find an article that had the most ridiculous number of deals for people to wade through, and like the least curated possible, not the 37 best deals, 200 plus October Prime Day deals are live on Amazon. So in this Mashable article that we have in the show notes, and as usual, there's a fair number of Amazon products. You always get deals on things like Kindles and Fire tablets and Ring doorbell thingbobs and whatnot. A whole bunch of Apple deals and air fryers, all sorts of stuff. Earbuds. There's always tons of earbuds, smart home assistants, smart speakers, and the like. So honestly, I look at this stuff and I go, cool, but this is our privilege speaking, but a lot of us are kind of good for a lot of tech products. So you see
Yeah.
the stuff and it's like, I guess maybe if we know some people that are looking for, an inexpensive TV or something. I mean, one of the remarkable things is deals on Apple products, which is pretty rare because Apple doesn't usually discount its own products and doesn't really appreciate others discounting. So maybe they've got a special arrangement with Apple to allow this, since it's only a couple of times a year. Well, I mean, they've got Prime Day in July. Now there's special Prime Days in October, and then we'll have Black Friday in November. I mean, soon it's going to be something every month. So Will, just looking at the sort of deals we've got here in audio stuff or e-reader stuff or robot vacuum type stuff, is what's jumping out to you as something that you might think about a little bit if you had a little bit of money, or maybe a gift card burning a hole in your pocket?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually sending a link now to you about the thing I'm most excited about. All the things that I'm excited about are like Adidas pants for $10 cheaper.
Nice.
And yeah, this the item I sent to you, which is $20 off. I don't have Prime, so I might have to try to get someone who has Prime to buy this for me. But basically, yeah, it's like a record case for $20 cheaper than normal.
Oh, and this is for 7. So this is for Wii records for your 40,
yeah,
your 45s.
Wii.
I can search
freaking Wii. Yeah, so this is for Gray for the portable type records. So yeah, I want one of these. I actually already have one, but I have too many records. Yes, exactly. That's what holds that. So yeah, that's the thing.
Greg, can you describe what you're holding up for our audio listeners?
This is a 7-inch record that has 8 tracks on each side, and this one is called Tones 1.0, which you probably know more than I am. It's made from melodic scratching.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I think there's an ointment.
I've got 2 copies of it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, I figured if you're going to teach me, you should have a copy, and I should have a copy. That way, I'm doing the same thing that you're doing.
Sounds good. I look forward to it. I love the scratching. I have a problem.
For that.
But some of the other things, just from your list there, to be honest with you, Tristan, is the Switch is an interesting deal with
Nintendo
Mario
Switch?
Kart, and also the Fire Stick was something that I've thought about off and on. $22.99, I believe.
That's very cheap.
Funny thing, I will say, Tristan, you may not remember this. Last year, we did almost the exact same thing. We talked about the Amazon Prime deals.
We always do.
We always do.
Favorite time.
And one of the things that started percolating for me was the cheap TVs.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up not buying a cheap TV. But this whole thing was the genesis of my wife and I buying a TV, which you so kindly helped us select. But this was one of the things, because we needed a TV. We were having some sort of color issues with the TV we had in the bedroom. So we swapped
old plasma,
out. The old plasma, unfortunately.
Bless his heart.
Yeah, the color was kind of, it looked like it was like burned. Parts of it were kind of black where it shouldn't be black.
The heat sinks go on a lot of those Panasonic TVs, and they start to discolor certain areas of the screen. I have one that I got at the Salvation Army for $80, and it looked great. And then until I watched a hockey game, and there's a big yellow splotch in the middle of the ice, and it's a heat sink issue. So you can take them apart and fix that kind of stuff, but we're not.
Yeah. So yes, this was part of the sorry, I can't speak today. The getting us started on
impetus. That's what
impetus. Yeah, there we go. Impetus on getting a TV. So this story last year actually started us down the road. We started looking at some of these TVs and decided we don't want legal spyware on our TV, and that's the exchange for a $500 42-inch TV is that they track you. So yeah, we started looking down other avenues, but
and if there's one thing I'm good at, is helping friends spend even more money than they should. So,
yeah.
But we found a good middle path there. I think it was the LG A2 OLED, which is a nice entry level OLED, beautiful, huge upgrade from the Toshiba LED backlit LCD monitor or TV that you had. I think it's LED backlit.
Yeah.
So huge upgrade. And when we watched Mutant Mayhem with you, looked fabulous, and I was at a bad angle too, and great viewing angles on that TV, beautiful colors. So
yeah,
and
we're super happy with it. The other thing too for me is that it has an app called Fubo, which is how I watch Premier League soccer. That does not have an app for PlayStation 5, which is infuriating. So it's the only way I can watch Fubo on a TV. So that's the other great thing about it.
Gotcha. Gray, scanning the deals that from this article at least, and Amazon. There's this event's going over a couple of days, and sometimes they release stuff on separate days. But I mean, aside from this really intriguing Breville Smart Oven Pizzaiolo pizza oven, I'm not really going to be spending $61.92 US for a one-trick pony there with our limited counter space. But was anything jumping out at you? I know that you're saving your pennies at the moment, but there's a lot of stuff here to go through.
I feel like I'm about to get back into the reckless spending mode.
Oh no, here we go.
Just fingers crossed. But and then more news on that maybe in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been dying for a robot vacuum. I've had several in my life, and they've all been Cory Doctorow, just terrible. So yeah, they've been bad, and I'm looking for one that does not. How do you say suck?
Mm-hmm.
But while it sucks,
Right.
Yeah, it is a vacuum.
Well, nothing sucks like Electrolux, as they say.
Which try to find what a Miele. Can I get a Miele and a robot? Nobody will do it for me. It's just
we got a Miele stick vacuum last Christmas. Overpaid
right?
for it, but it is really good and very light. But it's not a robot. It's just a
stick vac. That's the thing. My Dyson is almost like the Dyson of Theseus at this point, because literally almost every part except the cyclone has been replaced.
Wow.
And like at a fraction of the cost of buying a new one, which is great. And also I get to make a Ship of Theseus joke. So that's really, really good. So robot vacuum is one. I bought a projector last time, but they didn't charge my credit card correctly. So they canceled the order, which made me tabletop and mad. Yeah.
It saved you from some spyware anyway. So.
Yes, it did. Well, actually, no. So that was one of the few where it was like, did not come with Android, did not have an operating system, had inputs that you could plug an HDMI thing into. And I'm like, that's what I want right there.
Nice.
I don't want damn Android virus infected. See, that was the joke with the other thing earlier. Is these Android devices ship with malware? I'm like, anyway, sorry. Joke has been made too many times. The last piece of the puzzle here that I was looking for was possibly another cheap sous vide, something with a little bit more power though. And I have not found it because I'm looking for something that's over 800 watts that is less than $100. And so that is probably going to be next.
And very quickly on the robot vacuum, would you want just a straight up vacuum or one with the mop capabilities as well?
It's all hardware floors and hardwood floors in here, except for some rugs, and those rugs are all washable. So I'm like, mop would be pretty good if I could get it. What you got?
Nice. Okay, so let's
make it a note.
We're going long for time here, so we're going to bump something to next week. But there is some news that we included in the teasers that we should talk about. COVID did a dirty on some of our bodies, and some of us pumped up a little. Even with the PlayStation, the PS5, huge.
I'm huge,
but. The long rumored PS5 Slim has been revealed, coming out in November, I believe,
with a price bump.
So what they're doing here, there's the two versions. The PS5 regular big boy with the disc slot, and then the all digital one that didn't have the awkward disc slot, but somehow they've made it so the disc slot is even more awkward looking, but the benefit is it's modular. So the idea is that you could remove it. Now, I wasn't really clear on the details. Can you buy the digital only one, pop the panel off, and then add the drive later? Because they're kind of positioning it as two separate things in the moment. And what I was reading is like, oh yeah, you can buy the one with the disc and then take the disc out. It's like, okay, great, but wouldn't it be smarter the other way around? So, Gray, you want to clarify that one for
so for those out there with more money than sense, more dollars than brains,
or don't have a PS5 yet,
or don't have a PS5 yet. Well, no, I'm just saying if you bought the disc version, and then you had a secondary TV that you wanted to put a PlayStation 5 on, but you want to bring the disc back and forth, someone who has a cottage, not someone who's cottaging. Don't look that one up if you're in the UK. I'm sorry we even mentioned it. But if you're taking the disc drive from one to the next, that would actually make a whole lot of sense. And you can buy the disc drive separately, which is fantastic. As someone
Take note, Apple.
As someone who owns a disc drive PlayStation, I don't care. Although, if you do need a disc drive for your Apple system, I do still have a Super Drive that I use, and it does still work.
Me too. But the thing, I as well got the disc version of the PS5 because I want to play 4K Blu-rays when I eventually get a 4K TV. But you know, our 1080p plasmas or Kuros are still holding out. Now, so you've got the disc version. Will, do you have the disc version of the PS5 as well?
We do.
Okay, so we're all disky here. So again, it's a nice to have the option. Maybe you change your mind. Like if you'd gotten the all digital one and like afterwards, like, oh, I should have got the disc. Well, you could add it, pop the panel off, add it on. Yeah, looks like I said, somehow worse than the original disc one. Is more lumpy now. But what you're gonna do? It could be worse. So maybe there'd be you get a little deal on that for your Christmas or your. I don't think they're on sale for Amazon Prime because that's maybe Black Friday, but things don't usually go on sale quite that soon. All right, let's move right to our momentous picks. Gray, what is your momentous pick this week?
Have a joy day. Demolition Man is 30 years old, and I'm officially old.
Nice.
Oh man, what a great, phenomenal movie. Sorry, Sylvester Stallone as John Spartan. You've got Wesley Snipes. You've got what's her name? Sandra Bullock in there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. This
totally memory hold that one. Okay.
This is such a great film. It is. So you've got a guy in the mid-90s. He is a commando of a cop, and he takes down one of the worst terrorists on the planet, played by Wesley Snipes. Sylvester Stallone does this, but as he does, a trap has been set, and unfortunately, a whole bunch of school kids die. So both of them are sentenced to this brand new technology of the cryo prison. And we tune into, I think it's 30 years-ish later, probably now-ish. And when we do, Wesley Snipes, Simon Phoenix is his character's name, because from the ice he rises from the non-ashes, and he breaks out of prison, during which time he has been like Minority Report style educated in all of the terrorist arts, which you can take at the Vry. And then you've got Sylvester Stallone, who has been taught how to knit. And so they defrost the one cop who can deal with this guy, because they live in a Huxley-esque world where sex is completely touchless, like a car wash. All restaurants are now Taco Bell or Pizza Hut if you're not in the North American region. And
this is idiocracy.
And everyone has a joy day. There is no toilet paper. There are only the 3 seashells. And this is one of the best movies of all time. If you have not watched it, unfortunately, it is not available for streaming in Canada. It's available for $4.99 to rent or $9.99 to buy on your available digital video store. Go check it out and have a joy day.
1993. Now, I think
it's a great movie.
I think I saw it in the theaters. There was a wild time. I just moved back from Victoria at the time, and things were going on real busy. So I need to check this one out again, because I'm not sure like what its critical reception was at the time, but it seems to have amassed a bit of a cult following, if nothing else.
Yeah. It does not promise to be anything more than it is, which is a really entertaining movie that is so tongue-in-cheek. And it's actually a little bit of incisive criticism that, as we progress, becomes more and more relevant. So this movie didn't want to be a whole lot when it was first made, but is becoming more pertinent every year as every year passes.
So yeah, I forgot that it had a bit of humor to it as well, too. It's being described as a comedy action flick. And, Stallone looks like he's in great shape there. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Yep. No HGH. That's just raw Stallone.
Raw Stallone. Unfiltered. All right. William, you've been catching up with the Strangers.
Yeah. So
do tell.
Yeah. So, not to get too far into it, but last year was not a great year for me. And I did not watch a lot of TV or movies that maybe all the ones that I wanted to watch. So I was joking we were watching The Two Strangers at the same time. So Star Trek Strange New Worlds, season 2, which we loved. It's just the Trek that we love. Monster of the Week, a crew that you like, a captain that's likable, and they like each other. Notice the dig at Discovery there. I really love this season. There's some great episodes. The crossover with Lower Decks. There's a musical episode. Brilliant. Yeah, the musical episode is so great. I love this season. I know Gray talked about it a couple times, so I just sort of saying this as a sort of a connecting the dots back to I've actually watched it. And then Stranger Things. I finally watched that. We weren't able to watch it when it came out just because of some
timing,
personal issues. So we finally powered through that. Liked it a lot. I think I liked season 3 better, but I still enjoyed the season. I'm not as much of a horror guy, but I have to say, hot take. I texted you guys as soon as I finished it. My favorite character is Murray. My fingers are like arrows. My body is like steel or whatever it is. He's so great. He's so great. I love him as a character. Murray is just awesome. So I mean, lots of good stuff here. I still enjoyed the season. So to say I liked the last season better, I mean, this was still a good season and I enjoyed it a lot. So So highly recommend both of those things. And
Will, I'm gonna have to make you one of these.
Nice.
It is a Hawkins Township Soccer Club shirt, sponsored by the Starcourt Mall.
Oh, yeah, you got to get me one of those.
I will make you one of this is the shirt that I
will
made.
buy one off of you if you want. And I would love that.
And by total coincidence, I just happened to be wearing the Stranger Things shirt that you got for me, Will.
Nice.
Yes. A year or two ago. So
yeah, epic. So yeah, it all connects. But yeah, no, I highly recommend it if you get a chance. One last thing, didn't have strange in the title, but one of the people in it is strange. Is that we also finally watched Top Gun Maverick after
nice.
So also another thing I wasn't able to watch, and we watched that because we had we got the 7-day trial of Paramount Plus, because we were watching Strange New Worlds, and we're like, what else is on Paramount Plus?
Let's binge
Top Gun Maverick. So so also enjoyed that a lot. I feel like I'm finally catching up to 2021 or 2022. So I am officially now a year behind. So awesome. I'm caught up.
Nice.
And you've burned another one of your momentous picks.
Yeah.
That's 3 in 1. I mean, I was okay with the Two Strangers, but throwing Maverick in there, I mean, that's a yellow card.
Well, I kind of feel like they're all things that other people have talked about, and I'm just picking up with you guys. So I feel like it's my picks, but Gray had Strange New Worlds before, and somebody else had Maverick before. So I feel like I'm just jumping on.
I think Murray being your pick is the pick.
Murray's my hero. I just love it. There's something about that character that
is
the
so
actor
awesome.
is great. Yeah, the actor is great. I just think I love that character. He's kind of underappreciated, I think.
And the actor, I believe his name is it Brett Gelman?
Yeah.
So just again by coincidence, while we were away in Seattle over the weekend, in the hotel, and I brought my Apple TV with me, but forgot an HDMI cable, and I refused to go and buy one at like the local Best Buy or Target or whatever, because I have so many HDMI cables at home. So, we get back to the hotel room after like wandering around, maybe acquiring a momentous pick of the week. And, you throw on the TV, and what was on but the other guys starring Will Ferrell, starring Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah,
Brett Gelman's in that as well. So, and he plays a similar character, but a little hornier.
He's a great actor. I mean, like I think the Murray character, I totally forgot about him and the other guys, which I saw, a decade ago. But it's great in that. He's so entertaining, and he just is who he is, and it seems like he is that guy, but he probably isn't. So.
All right. So speaking of Seattle, and I did spoil this for you because I couldn't contain my excitement and I texted on the group chat. So as a bit of background, midnight.
Oh, don't mind that. Everything's fine.
Okay, fine. I'll pick up the pace.
Is that a cat-related incident, or what was that?
I'm gonna have to find out. Carry on. Sorry.
It's all right. On fire. As a bit of background, mid to late 90s, I was going through, I guess, quarter life crisis. I thought I'm going to go and hunt for and buy a bunch of the old video game consoles from the 80s that I never got a chance to have as a kid. I had an Atari 2600, which I had picked up secondhand from my buddy Isaac with 3 games after saving up and collecting bottles and cans from the ditches along the highway at our place. And take note, kids. You value what you work for. Anyhow, so that was 1982, I believe. So during that acquisition, we're going to Goodwills and Value Villages and other thrift stores and getting really lucky, finding some cool systems like Intellivision, ColecoVision, Atari XE, which I'd never even heard of, which is basically like an Atari 400 or 800 generation type of computer, but without the keyboard. Although I do have the extra keyboard for it as well, but it was more like a game console. It's very, very, not very well known. I managed to get 2 Vectrexes as well, which were all-in-one vector graphic screen devices at the time, little game consoles. But an Atari 7800 too, which was backward compatible with the 2600. But one that I could never find, even though I found a few cartridges for it, was the Atari 5200, which came out in 1982. It was a chief rival to the ColecoVision. And so those were 2 of the last systems just before the great video game crash of 1983, thanks to the superior horsepower of a lot of the computing systems of the time, such as the Commodore 64 and the Atari 8-bit computers and the Apple II. And then a year or 2 later, then we had the revitalization of the video game industry with the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, originally the Famicom in Japan. So this Atari 5200 was my white whale. And I've literally been looking for it for 25 plus years. And it's a beast, but it's a beautiful slab. And it was the Atari's new design language at the time. I can't remember what their code name for it was. The controllers were notoriously terrible. They were sort of analog sticks, not very good if you wanted to take a, make a hard turn in a game like Pac-Man, something like that. But the device itself was pretty beefy. I actually just tried out a few games, and yeah, it's
still
good.
Work?
Oh yeah, and it's good. So shout out to Pink Gorilla Games in Seattle. They have 3 locations, and I lucked out. It was the first location I went to in the Capitol Hill area, and they had it in the case there. I'm like, oh my goodness! But it was just the device, and you couldn't see the controllers or any of the accessories. I'm like, oh no, is this like one of these things where they don't have any of the parts? No, they had all the parts, and actually, the controllers fit. One of the reasons why this thing is so big is the controllers fit into the back section of it. I think there's a shot here. Yeah.
Nice.
The controllers fit into the back there, so it's a nice tidy look, and it came with the power adapter and the cable. The owner of Pink Gorilla Games, Cody, he even put an adapter at the end of the RCA style RF plug, put a little coax adapter. So I have a Samsung CRT TV on the floor beside me here. I hooked it up, no waviness, no weird lines or anything like that. It's beautiful. And I played a few games. It's like, yes. It's not quite as good as the 7800, which is a superior machine and is backward compatible with the 2600. But this 5200, it was a flop, only sold about 1 million units. It's a weird little oddball machine. And by little, I mean huge. But I think, can I die happy now? Maybe.
Yeah.
So
I can't die happy till I buy a Vestex QFO, but you can die happy now.
So some of the games that I had already had on hand, I had Berserk, I had Mario Brothers, like before Super Mario Brothers.
The arcade one, the arcade version?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And I was just playing it, and it's hard, but it's very good. Real Sports Football, and Jungle Hunt, and I have Galaxian as well. And then some of the games that I picked up.
Galaxian, that's a classic.
So I mean, these games were like between $4 and $6 between $4 and $9. So I kind of gobbled up as many as I could get. Well, I visited the 2 other Pink Gorilla Games locations in Seattle. So putting their Cody's kids through college there. So we got Centipede here, a game called Countermeasure, which I'd never heard of. But I looked online. There's some great retro gaming sites can tell you if the games are any good. I picked up another Real Sports Football because I forgot I had it, and then also Football, but which is also the same as Real Sports Football, but before they rebranded it. So now I've got 3 versions of the 3 copies of the same.
Could you bring up the controllers again? That on So there was another controller with like a trackball. Can you bring that up for a second?
That's not included with it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be hunting for that. I have the similar controller for the ColecoVision, which they shipped with Slither, which was a Centipede knockoff.
That looks like something you do accounting with or something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if this shows up in like the next season of Andor or something, like painted a different color. And
is that for like Missile Command or Centipede?
Yeah, exactly. Missile Command, Centipede, Millipede, all those sorts of games.
Tempest 2000 or Tempest, just Tempest.
Well, yes, Tempest works better with the paddles, the rotating thing than a ball. But then very, very lastly here, what else? Oh yeah, I picked up another copy of Galaxian because I forgot I had that. Kangaroo, Kicks with a Q, and Real Sports Tennis. So
nice.
And they were so cheap because this is such. There's
very little market for it.
Yeah, because it's an obscure system, but you'd think that being rare that they would be high. I don't know, but again, I have never seen one in the wild in a store. I mean, I could go and buy one on eBay, but what's the fun in that, right?
Yeah,
not a lot of fun.
It's the hunt,
and you save on the shipping. So
yeah,
so my heart is full.
Well done. Thank you, Pink Gorilla Games.
Yes, exactly. In Seattle. Check them out. I'll include a link to them in the show notes as well. Yeah. So again, just I'm so, my heart is full, but also privilege. Hearts go out to those in Israel and the West Bank. A lot of stuff going on. Let's not forget Ukraine. So all this, we're bearing in mind that, especially we've got Amazon Prime Day deals and all that sort of stuff. It's important to remember. Some people don't have it so good right now, so let's keep them in our thoughts. And there are all sorts of great non-governmental organizations that are trying to help people in those affected areas as well. And not to bring the house down, but it's just, it's easy to get excited about like retro video games, but like that is, it's really not that important at the end of the day. So let's just.
It's not important, but sorry to interject here, but it's also, you've got to find the pleasure in little things as well, right?
That's right.
And you value life, and I've gone through that in the last year or so, and it's like, carpe diem, you got to seize the day, and obviously all the stuff that's happening in the world in Ukraine and Israel, it's horrific, it's horrible, it's saddening, but I don't think we should also feel bad about enjoying the little things and enjoying life where we can, while still helping up people whenever we can. Like you said, give to the Red Cross or various charities and things like that. So anyways, that's my interjection on that somber moment. But
all right, some people need a bio break badly, so with that, check us out at momentous.tv, and we hope your week is truly momentous.